I love the sea. I love the smell just before it rains.
I loved discovering the big lizards who would go into the stone walls, but you could still see their tails. They were unaware that you could see their tails. I loved forgetting about the time.
A memory 10 years ago, and the air of Paros.
You might find this very ironic, but I love silence. Birds. Touch.
I love here, in this place, I love the blue of the water. I love the octopus. And in general, I love my boyfriend.
I love the feeling of being embraced and held by complete darkness yesterday. And I love the almost black, gnarly strength of the branches of oak trees. And I love to sit under oak trees and commune with the spirit of the tree. I love the surprise of a gathering like this, the newness and freshness of it.
I love the noisy bird that woke me up this morning at 5:30 a.m. and persisted in singing. I absolutely love Greek yogurt. I love and cherish the delightful companies of strangers becoming friends, becoming family. That means I love you all.
I love music. And I love gypsies and the nomadic and Bedouin in all of us.
Utterly, absolutely, desperately love being alive. I love all of creation and learning to pray for my enemies. And I absolutely love and crave the sound of the human voice.
But I like the sea in all its diversity. Blue here, green in Brazil, brown in other places of the world. I love the sea and I love the waves, maybe more than the sea.
I love the burst of stars that you can see here that you can't see when you're in a city. You look up and suddenly you realize that, my God, the stars are still there. And you forget about that. I forget about that. I love how important it is to try to help people connect and what that means, how you define it, what does connection mean, and what does self mean in terms of individuals and states, and trying to bring that together in a positive way.
Seeing beauty in ugliness, meeting people within a different context, and so like relationships evolving over a course of like a few days. The last light before darkness in Greece.
I love the warmth of the sun on my face and the twinkle in Barry's eyes. I love the dimples on my daughter's face when she's very happy.
I love it when I feel fully present, and I love to create.
I love wilderness and the energy that brings new forms into existence in humans and in the rest of nature. I love water in motion, thunderstorms, waves, creeks, rivers, waterfalls. And I love the fact that marks on paper can inspire worlds inside our heads.
I love running in the morning with Artemis here as we try to figure out what we're going to do during the day. And each day that we've done it, we have felt worse. But somehow today we ran farther than any other day with a much bigger hangover than any other day. And I love the magic that seems to have been created here.
Well, we were thinking really
in terms of the Platonic dialogues, the agora, the idea to bring together, as Socrates did with his students and colleagues, a number of really smart and lively writers to talk about what it was that they hold in common. Well, it seems to me you almost never remember the last line of a Platonic dialogue, but what you remember is the give and take, the ever-deepening grasp of understanding, the determination to keep digging, and that's what we did during the course of our week here on Paros. We come to think that combat is the norm, but in fact, human history suggests that wars aside, and they are the most dramatic events in our history, most of what we do consists of cooperation, from raising our children and educating them to building bridges to all the sorts of things that make up a life. So if we can create a useful model and in the new symposium and publicize it in a variety of ways, through film, through books, through continued writings by the writers who participated in the symposium, then perhaps we will have done a little something about to show other groups of writers, anthropologists, scientists, policymakers. We give them a new tool, if you will, or remind them of a very old tool that can be useful for finding common ground. And you get right down to it. One of the things that holds us together as a people is that creative spark, the capacity for wonder, the capacity to create new things, to try to uncover meaning about our walk in the sun. And that's a conversation that I really love. And insofar as we were able to cultivate that this week, we've added something to the fabric of life, or so I like to tell myself.
Some say life is continuing in the face of the alternative. Some say conquest. Some stretch an equal sign between life and its absence. And some say that life was given us to serve those whose lives are not alive. I say you. And this is easily explained. Once again, night envelopes what can be seen. At home, lamps are lit, and in the light there is no glance except the one from the mirror. Nothing except what sees me seeing it. And it brings not release, but longing, not death, but life. And I take from this gaze the warm and the cold. Night envelopes everything, and I long for the one who sees me through touching, and I don't remember a thing. Only this. Poet, what does he do? He just sits there and dreams. But in a way, he dreams reality anew, gives meaning to reality, enhances reality. In a dialogue, you have to somehow convey what is already in the listener, partly, because if people don't identify with it, don't find it within themselves in some way, it's meaningless to them. I think we kind of mix global values in some pot, and each part really is taking what suits him better, slowly. So on the one hand, we have this communal life of being outside and sitting together in coffee houses on the beach, and you don't need to a special occasion just to sit with other people. In that sense, social life is maybe natural in this climate, but taking care of nature, understanding our ethical role in being responsible for each other, I don't think we're in a better place than other societies. A language. Language is traces stained by over there. Language says, listen, now. You listen, here was echo. Take silence and try to be silent. Take the words and try to speak. Beyond language, language is a wound from which the world flows and flows. Language says, is not, is not. Language says, I. Language says, come on, let's speak you, let's handle you. Come on, say you have said. Art is about openness. When you come to poetry, there's the problem of language. We have to translate. It's not as immediate as music or visual art. But it's also interesting because with language, all the mentality and the sensibilities of different groups is carried. And once you work between languages, you understand a lot about the other options of looking at life by other people. In Helicon, which I run, we do a lot of activities that are common to both Jews and Arabs, and not as a negotiating table, but as working together really, on the basis of human beings, poets, and I think it's very easy to do with art, and we try to make it like an island of sanity inside this conflict zone. I think with considerable success. Each one of us deals with politically with his life, with his social circle, but it's not about that. So in a way, art is a salvation from politics. For calling yours my own, for having sinned before you by anxiety and vain fear, for having fed the fire of doubt from the log of the tree of plenty, for having been dilatory in growing, for having shut my door and having neither heard nor seen nor let happiness enter me when beholding your being.
Αν ήμουν ήλιος της αυγής και του βραδιού φεγγάρι, θα είχε την ίδια σου ομορφιά, την ίδια σου τη χάρη. And the poor heart, and it breaks the poor heart all the time.
So the entry for mother takes up 3 full pages in the Oxford English Dictionary. Father occupies 1. The Indo-European root for mother is mat, an extension of ma, breast, as in mama, or breastfeeder. And from that tiny root, mater, an encapsulated history of life emerges. We get Demeter, literally mother of the gods, metropolis, Athens, matriculate, and matrimony. All that is missing is death. But then mother is the life giver. We must find death elsewhere. Recall Saddam Hussein's prescient phrase warning George W. Bush that by invading Iraq, the U.S. would experience the mother of all wars. In the most basic matter of civilization, language itself, one speaks a mother tongue. To turn to the more sublime, we come across the hardness of mother of pearl, the softness of mother of time, the absolute truth of mother naked, and the absolute nurture of mother womb. We share our first moments with mother at the breast and the pulse and rhythm of sucking and in the ingesting of liquidity. We might also call breast time the rocking, talking, singing, and nonsense-making time with mother, what I once called orality and have since expanded into bacality, that is, mouthing time. We all carry a deep-seated, ancient, and Greek, I may add, longing for a reunion with the mother of all mothers, the mythological mother, the inspiriting mother. Mother enables us to breathe. She provides our rhythm. Poetry keeps us breathing with its varied but steady meters.
Koina Gr En δημοτικού, μου αρέσει όπως και του Γιάννη να βοηθά τον κόσμο. Τη μαμά μου τη λένε Κατερίνα Ρούσου. Τον πατέρα μου τον λένε Γιάννη Ρακούση. Είναι σαν να είναι απλό εργάτης. Σαν να δουλεύει κάπου. Επειδή είναι δήμαρχος, γυρίζει αργά το βράδυ και είναι σαν να δουλεύει κάπου.
Bring back the imagination. Bring it back from its damaged, recessed, commodified place and bring it out in the open and make people crazy again. Break the rules.
Γεια σου, Φάνη!
Γεια σου, Φάνη!
One evening, a few weeks ago, a man fell down at my feet and died. I was one of 3 judges at the Gratian Prize, which is Sri Lanka's equivalent of the Booker Prize. The gentleman, Mr. Shanmugalingam, was one of 5 finalists. As his name was called out, he wobbled his way through the aisle onto the stage. I remember thinking, I did not expect an old man to have written the book. And as he began to read, I noticed that he had an air of great joy that radiated from him. He had written an extremely brave novel criticizing the liberation tigers of Tamileelam and hostile towards all parties that perpetuate the state of war. As he was reading excerpts from the novel, trembling from a combination of what I would like to think as age and happiness, he collapsed and died. His death shattered me. Later that night, as I wept in bed for a man I barely knew, except through his novel, I did not quite understand what I was mourning for. The next day, I switched off my mobile phone. I visited friends and did not speak of the tragic event. I bought a pair of red linen trousers and sat quietly with my mother-in-law, who had had a mild stroke a week ago. I looked out of my bedroom window and watched the sunset over the tops of palm trees and mango trees. The red roofs turned a rose pink and seemed to glow with pleasure. And then I realized that what I was mourning was what I had in common with that man, that I too would one day die, that each and everyone in this world would experience that event we call death. And then, what? If we look down through the ages, never before had there lived a people who have been as selfish as we are. We live as if there is nothing to leave behind. We live as if there is no one to leave it for. Sri Lanka is going through an ethnic conflict, and what has happened is a lot of people want to leave the country because life has become not conducive to them. But I made a conscious decision to keep my Sri Lankan passport because I realized that that in itself is a statement. Because I am a writer, as time went on and I did start traveling, it became increasingly obvious to me that we were not supposed to travel. And this was not told to us like, you are scum, stay at home, but in the literal heartache and pain and hardship that they put you through in trying to get a visa. We want to be able to enjoy the right to travel around this world that we thought belonged to us without the hassle that is meted out by the first world to the third. And so I hope I have the courage to continue to keep my third world passport, because then I can write about it. I can hopefully share our collective outrage at being treated like this. We still have a vestige of humanity. We are still a kind people. We're generous. We have our own version of commons, which is that everyone has access to water wherever it is. If you own a piece of land and it has natural water, you cannot deny it to the people who live around you. I think that's a priceless gift that we have inherited. We have right of way to the oceans and rivers. You cannot mark it off. You cannot have boundaries. Traditional medicine, Ayurveda, which we have, has become very big. People like me, perfectly average and normal people, if we fall sick, we would rather boil a herb called kottamalli than take antibiotics. Because we ourselves feel that we had this great and rich tradition of living at one with nature, of valuing what nature had to give us. And then we were in danger of losing it because we were gravitating towards the path that the Western states had taken before. Part of me fears for the future generation, but another part is kind of comforted because I think maybe we've caught it in time. Maybe all is not lost.
We have a calendar to remind us of today is the 18th. And
what month, Chris?
And I believe it's May, but we're going to have Stratus read it for us to make sure. So.
Πέμπτη, Σελήνη 21, Ανατολή 5 και 13, Δύση 19 και 31. Πέτρου, Διονυσίου, Ανδρέου και Ιουλίας, τα Saints. Ποτέ μου δεν εχάρηκα εγώ μες στη ζωή μου, μόνο καημοί και βάσανα φωλιάζουν στην ψυχή μου. It's a doggerel. Never in my life have I enjoyed myself and only suffered pains and turmoil which have nestled in my soul.
I am standing in a wasteland on the edge of the desert in the border region of Jodhpur, Rajasthan. This is not an oran, commons stretching in front of me. What I see for miles and miles is a field of bones, animal bones. Bleached under the sun, these bones have acquired the color of dust. Surveying these bones, it is hard not to imagine a battlefield, signifying the end of life itself. Bones, what we hold in common. The common denominator, what remains after death, in different states of disintegration. Suddenly I notice color, pinpoints of bright blue and shocking pink, surreal dots and patches punctuating the monochromatic dust of the bones. I realize that these colors are pieces of plastic wedged within the skeletal remains of the animals. A daunting thought. In the absence of food, these animals have eaten plastic in their lifetimes, and some of them have died with the plastic intact within the cavities of their stomachs. Even in death, plastic remains non-biodegradable. Plastic, what we hold in common. But a closer look at the interstices and undergrounds of global cities would reveal the scavengers at work, those untouchable non-citizens, the toilers and laborers who keep the city clean. More minutely, in the cosmopolitan sectors of the global metropolis, untouchability is reaffirmed as the citizens avoid staring into the eyes of strangers, walking past them as if they do not exist. The other, in its proliferating avatars of suspicious Muslims and grubby immigrant workers, pollutes the gaze of the citizenry, even in the most disciplinary regimes prohibiting eye contact. I feel the artist today, if he or she is concerned with responsibility, has to reach out, to other agencies, to other people who are involved in these areas of public culture. And many of these people may not be associated with the world of art at all, so you have to find a new language, It's not your language alone that is sufficient. You will have to reach out to other languages, other ways of thinking, other ways of acting. I think in public spaces when you are in a vulnerable situation, you are compelled to be humble. I think not being in control over the situation can sometimes be very liberating. I don't know how one cultivates humility. I don't know. It's just by placing yourself in situations and in contexts where your expertise no longer holds up. You know, and you realize that you have to start from scratch. What you know is insufficient, and you have to start all over again.
Il n'y avait pas eu de médecin, il n'y aurait jamais eu de malade. Car c'est par les médecins et non par les malades que la société a commencé. Ceux qui vivent, vivent des morts. Il faut aussi que la mort vive. Il n'y a rien comme un asile aliéné.
How you deal with the other and the use that the other can make of what you are doing, and so to not to keep it as something as my work eternally, since my work is depends on the participation of the other. So it's not just mine, it's ours. I think that it's more democratic from the point of view of the creative process, but actually the distributive or the distribution of the work, it's not democratic at all. It's a matter of access. I find that there is a lot of respect for what I'm doing by all those anonymous personalities that take part of my work. Sometimes I know them, and most of the times I don't know who is there. So I think there is a new ethics that can regulate this. You give and you receive. It's a sharing mentality. It's what we call today intellectual generosity. So I think that we must expand this to creative generosity, aesthetics generosity, and this certainly will point to new directions in this common sphere. And everything that you do now, it will disappear in 2 years. Nothing stands in this medium. For instance, you are using this camera now, and I'm sure that from now 2 years you'll be using another one, and this will be nothing. And so, first of all, I think that the first step is to really be conscious that you are dealing with something that will not be able to carry your signature forever. So it makes easier the process of generosity actually in this way. No, I think that it's more a generation problem, it's more a cultural problem than a national problem. What's something that really was surprising for me, and it was very good to see that I've been living in a kind of bubble, is like to be with people who can be offline all day long, that they are not crazy because they cannot download their emails, that they are okay without their mobile phones. That is something for me is very difficult to deal, and so and to be conscious that yes, they can live without those things. Nobody needs really all this over media or over mediated situation. This is something that of course I learned here. It was very good to be confronted by this and take it easy.
Καταρχήν πρέπει να μιλήσει με τον εαυτό του και να συμφωνήσει πριν μιλήσει στους άλλους. Και το καλύτερο που μπορεί να κάνει, το περισσότερο που μπορεί να κάνει, είναι να προτείνει. Όπως είπαμε, ο Πλάτωνας δεν ήθελε τους ποιητές νομοθέτες στην πολιτεία του. Και πολύ σωστά. Γιατί έχουν μεν imagination, έχουν φαντασία, αλλά στο τέλος της γραφής αποτελούν μια ελίτ. Δεν είναι ο κοινός κόσμος που λέγανε πριν από λίγο, ο κόσμος που δεν έχει τη δική του φωνή και δεν μπορείς εσύ να του δώσεις τη δική σου. Το καλύτερο που μπορείς να κάνεις είναι να εντοπίσεις τη δική του φωνή και να την πεις εσύ δυνατά, και αν χτυπήσει ο εχθρός, να χτυπήσει εσένα. Όπως ο Χριστός που πήρε τις αμαρτίες του κόσμου, του κοινού ανθρώπου, για να τον εξηλαιώσει. Έτσι και εσύ ο ποιητής, όχι να δώσεις φωνή στο κοινό κόσμο, αλλά να ακούσεις τη φωνή του κόσμου και να τη φωνάξεις πιο δυνατά για να ακουστεί καλύτερα. Γιατί ο κόσμος δεν ξέρει να μιλήσει, γιατί ο κόσμος φοβάται να μιλήσει, γιατί ο κόσμος τιμωρείται όταν μιλάει. Με 1000 στόματα μιλάμε, 1000 στόματα κραίνει. Όποιος πεθαίνει σήμερα, 1000 φορές πεθαίνει. Σκυλάκια. Γαβ. Άμα έχεις βλέμμα με κριτική ικανότητα, αν διαβάζεις δηλαδή την ιστορία με κριτική ικανότητα, φυσικά μπορείς να βγάλεις συμπεράσματα και φυσικά μπορείς να αποτρέψεις ένα νέο κακό, όπως λέω εγώ σε ένα ποίημά μου. Αλλά τις περισσότερες φορές είναι γεγονός που ο κόσμος ξεχνάει, οι κοινωνίες ξεχνάνε τα διδάγματά τους από την ιστορία και την επαναλαμβάνουν ξανά και ξανά και ξανά. Γιατί είναι δύσκολο να εφαρμόσεις τα διδάγματα της ιστορίας. Θέλει δουλειά και θέλει θυσία. Θυσία χρόνου, θυσία ελευθερίας, θυσία περιουσίας καμιά φορά, θυσία καλοπέρασης.
I myself am sitting by the window typing down my rata-ta-ta-ta thoughts on the subject, still blaming others for my ineptness, compromises and relentless failures. If the artifact is flawed, I'd say the tools must be crooked. Mallet speaks no English, chisel no Greek. The day ends, cold rain falls steadily until dawn, drenching trees and vegetable gardens. I spend the early hours of the day tending the plants, wiping the green tomatoes on the vine with paper towels before the midday sun can boil the raindrops still clinging to them. Horses of ignorance draw the chariot of the sun through the clouds toward the day's first clearing. The workday is long and the night full of unpaid informers and killers. The sun of justice and the moon in love shine on overhead in all innocence until proven guilty.
Okay, I have to put wine in here. How do I do this?
Okay, here she goes. Okay. Παρασκευή. Σελήνη 22 ημερών. Ανατολή 5 και 12. Δύση 19 και 32. Πατρικίου Προύσης Μενάνδρου Μαρτίου. 19 Μαΐου Παρασκευή. Κάνω τάματα σ' Αγίους να σε έχουνε γερό, να έρθεις πια κοντά σε μένα που πολύ σε αγαπώ.
Pledge votives to the saints.
To keep you well.
To keep you well, healthy and well.
So that you can come closer to me. Me who loves you.
Thank you.
Thank you. 19.
Language represents a nation, the saying goes. Nay, I say, language overcomes the smells. When language no longer prevails over the smells, then the smell shall overcome the language. There will be no tie. You will be recognized by your words or by your breath's odor. If your words cannot be trusted, it's the odor of your breath that will be relied upon. If your deed cannot be trusted, it's your body odor that will be counted upon. Rationality represented by the eyes, but instincts are represented by the nose. Unfortunately, I have to be honest, God does not talk about this important human sense, this smell. The holy books talks about people who are blind, or hearts that are deaf, or tongues that are mute, but the book doesn't have anything to say about people who don't smell. There is not a miracle to recover a numb nose. The Bible doesn't have any description about smell, whereas in fact, smell is the source of hatred against the other. Smell is the foundation of the human error, errorism, ethnicism, racism, religionism, intergroupism. But we and our religions don't want to admit it. Our religions, the monotheism of Abraham, do not want to acknowledge instincts. That is why our holy books do not talk about the smell. And that is the very reason why our religion are powerless when it comes to a primitive war, when people revive their olfactory powers. Our one and almighty God becomes impotent when people return to their instinct of smell. I think the responsibility for the artists and writers and intellectuals is to question what people take for granted in their locality. I come from Indonesia, where these communal values are still present and in a repressive way. I will be the supportive of the individual, the value which celebrate the individual rights. I come to be interested in smell for two reasons. Actually, two disaster or kind of catastrophe that happened in Indonesia. First is the ethnic war in Borneo, which I put in my short story, in which we heard that the Dayak or the natives can smell the enemy and can distinguish the enemy from the other outcomers based on the smell, which is for us who lives in the modern world is impossible.
Close my eyes and imagine sunlight reflecting on the surface of a lake. Relaxing, I become the water. I become the ripples going out and the ripples crossing back. Slowly, I sink below the surface. I become the stillness. Gradually, I awaken to the countless tiny particles suspended around me and within me. I reach over the casket and pat Grandma's hand. It feels like wax. She looks deflated, heavy. I intuit the difference between Grandma and the body lying here. In some sense, that difference is uniquely Grandma, or rather the essence of Grandma. Yet, as I wonder what that difference is and where it has gone, I realize that Grandma is as close to me as my own heart. The truth of Grandma once emerged within the frame of this body, yet somewhere along the line, it became something that could not be fully contained by a body. She is sitting across from me, leaning over her lap, her elbows sinking into her thighs. Tears are dripping onto her arms. It's the simplest thing to reach for her hands and feel the warmth of my own tears. The sadness is uniquely hers, uniquely ours. And yet, it is as ancient and as familiar as the first human cry. I think that part of what we're trying to figure out is what the best sort of life is for us to live as individuals, but also as members of a global community. I think the important thing to consider, however, is that one needs art to evoke emotion, but then one also needs to reflect critically on the emotions that have been evoked. It's not a given that art will evoke emotions that are morally appropriate or upbuilding or that actually enhance our lives in the way in which we live together.
It says, when you pass in the street with your miniskirt, a deep pain, I got deep pain in my heart and dizziness in my head.
I was raised in the country, on farms and on back roads in the American Midwest. And I came to love animals, flowers, butterflies, birds, trees, all sorts of wild things as a boy. What's being sold to us every day as the American way of life is mostly a cheat and a lie. It's an infantile dream of endless consumption, endless novelty, and endless play. It's a pacifier for the ego to suck on. It's bad for us and bad for the earth. We need a dream worthy of grown-ups, one that values simplicity over novelty, conservation over consumption, harmony over competition, community over ego. We need a story that recognizes our well-being derives not from the private wealth we hold as individuals or as corporations, but from the commonwealth we share as members of the human family. We need a new vision of the good life. The commons is the key source for our well-being, that we don't, in fact, derive our well-being primarily from private wealth, from what we own individually, but from our shared wealth. And that includes not only land, parks, but also public institutions like schools and museums, gallery spaces, performance spaces. It includes the knowledge of how to care for olive trees or how to grow and bale and preserve hay and straw for our livestock. The cultural commons, this body of knowledge that humans have produced and accumulated and passed on over the centuries, is just as important as the natural commons, the land that we share. And I think art needs to celebrate, to call attention to, and to fiercely defend the value of the cultural commons and the natural commons. But I don't think that art should be primarily about the creator. I think it should be about the world that the creator witnesses, the world that he or she shares with all other human beings. So I believe that the artist has a social responsibility, a responsibility to pay attention to the world, to honor the world, to represent the world in ways that are meaningful to his or her contemporaries, and maybe if your art is great enough, to those who come after us. I don't personally value art which is only self-indulgent expression. I wouldn't say that loving nature by itself makes you a better human being. But I do think it tends to make you a more humble human being, because the more one learns about the natural world, the more one realizes, first of all, our total dependence on it. Everything that we eat, drink, wear, build with comes out of the earth. And we ourselves are made out of the earth. We breathe it, we drink it, we eat it. Our bodies are the earth. So the more one learns about nature, the more humble one is likely to be.
22nd May 2006.
22 Μαΐου. Βασιλίσκου Μαρτύρος Δημητρίου Παύλου. Η πέτρα πίνει το νερό και το νερό την πέτρα. The stone or the rock drinks or absorbs the water, and the water absorbs the stone. Μα εσύ στο δύσκολο καιρό το ριζικό σου μέτρα. But you in hardship or in hard times, το ριζικό σου μέτρα. Your fate. Your fate. Count your fate.
Let's suppose we woke up one day and found a bill in our mailbox never seen or thought of before. A bill asking us to pay a sun tax. The government of Greece has just privatized the sun, which now belongs to Helios Corporation, selling it at €2 per month to any citizen of the country wishing to consume it. The sole responsibility of Helios Corporation is to maintain the same quality of sunlight that humanity has known since the time of the famous Attic light. What a shock. Must we now pay for the sun? What? Isn't the sun a free good for everyone? Isn't that a given? Isn't it common for all? Quite naturally. But what exactly do we mean by the term common? The working hypothesis as regards Helios Corporation is not exactly one belonging to the sphere of science fiction. Let us not forget that markets have in recent years invaded areas which traditionally have been considered inconsumerate with economic sector. Market logic has it that everything can be bought and sold. Are we then to expect the moment at which some multinational company will buy Plato's thought? Are we to expect the moment at which the rhetorical question, who owns the sun, will expand itself to the question, who owns talent? Let us consider the case of literature. The view that a literary work embodies a standard use value, which is usually unforeseeable, no longer prevails as it did in the past. Millions of books read throughout the world enjoy no more than a few months of life. Books jostle with one another in the columns of Sunday newspapers in no way different than the statistic of industrial products in the financial sections of these newspapers. Πιστεύω ότι ένας συγγραφέας δεν είναι κοινωνικός επιστήμονας. Ό,τι έχει να πει το λέει μέσα από το έργο του. Εμείς οι Μεσόγειοι έχουμε μία τάση έτσι, με την καλή έννοια μιας τεμπελιάς απέναντι σε οτιδήποτε το κοινό. Αυτό μπορεί να μας γυρίσει μπούμερανγκ, γιατί κάποια στιγμή όταν αυτά θα αρχίσουν να τελειώνουν τα αγαθά μας και όλο αυτό το γνωστό θέμα με το περιβάλλον, θα τα βρούμε μπροστά μας. Έχουμε αυτή την ευτυχία να είμαστε μια χώρα και γενικότερα η Μεσόγειος, όπου οι άνθρωποι έχουν μια πολύ πιο απλές σχέσεις μεταξύ τους. Τις θεωρούν δεδομένες δηλαδή, θεωρούν την οικειότητα, την εμπάθεια με την καλή έννοια δεδομένη. Δεν χρειάζεται να κάνουμε συνέδριο για να την αναλύσουμε. Εμείς τουλάχιστον να διατηρήσουμε αυτά που θυμόμαστε και από κάποιες άλλες εποχές, όπου ίσως επειδή υπήρχαν ορατοί εχθροί τα πράγματα ήταν καλύτερα. Τώρα ο εχθρός είναι αόρατος, άρα είναι και παντού.
Έχει μια, θα έλεγα, μεγάλη ευθύνη για την τέχνη, γιατί ιδίως σε τοπικό επίπεδο μπορεί να κάνει και πρέπει να κάνει πολλά πράγματα για να στηρίξει όλες τις τοπικές, όλες τις κοινωνικές πολιτιστικές πρωτοβουλίες που υπάρχουν. Εγώ θα ήθελα, θα ήμουν ο πιο ευτυχισμένος άνθρωπος εάν κάποιο από τα παιδιά μου γίνονταν ένας καλός ζωγράφος. Και το απαντώ κατά αυτόν τον τρόπο, διότι έμεσα δηλαδή, διότι θα ήθελα πολύ να μπορούσα να ζωγραφίσω, δυστυχώς δεν μπορώ, αλλά η ζωγραφική πραγματικά με συγκινεί ιδιαίτερα.
It's only natural that the Fulbright Foundation has decided to partner in this project. Fulbright is a cultural and educational foundation that has been operating in Greece for nearly 60 years. And the main reason for the foundation is to promote mutual understanding and cultural exchanges. So it was a very good synergy to actually partner with the International Writing Program in Iowa and invite them to cross their borders, cross the Atlantic, and actually come to Greece to hold this first workshop with writers. And we're using it as a pilot program, and hopefully this will continue for a number of years, and we'll each time be choosing a different topic. And given the symposium, we decided to give it a very ambitious title to focus on the new symposium that is taking place of all countries in Greece, and inviting artists, writers, and thinkers to submit an essay with the common things, the things that are common among all of us in the world, without limiting them. And yes, it seemed chaotic in the beginning because it's such a broad topic, and now through the discussions I'm realizing as we're coming to an end that we're beginning to focus on finding common topics of interest and subjects that will definitely lead us to decide what will be the next topic for the symposium. Because taken into account actually right now that a number of the participants have never visited Greece. So we didn't want to rob them of the opportunity to actually feel, smell, leave the country. And yes, it sounds ambitious in a course of 6 days to actually understand the country, but at least you get a sample. And I remember that one of the participants said there's too much beauty, it hurts. And I understand it's too much to take in a very short period of time. I feel it's just like a completion of a cycle, so coming back to certain thoughts and ideas that did emerge in Greece. And also coming back to the choice of topic is we're focusing so much on the things that divide us and the differences that we have that we end up spending very, very little time on focusing on the things that we do have in common. Even a small number of people that will be affected by the results and what was discussed here will make a difference. I see it more like the domino effect, that eventually, the people that you want to reach, you will reach them and it will be substantive and it will be meaningful for them.
Fence. Once upon a time is what the fence dividing up a mountain range announces, in lines at once irregular and even. For drama, it depends upon a clear beginning, middle, and end. Its effects, cathartic, purging landowners of their terror, interlopers of their pity. On guard, the playwright cries, all the world's a fence, the groundlings say. In the ancient quarrel between fancy and the imagination, the fence takes both sides, nor does it distinguish between form and content, poetry and prose. These are the 4 directions of the fence: up, down, right, wrong, black, white, male, female. Nevertheless, at night, the fence points only toward the future, time's true north. In Tennessee, someone is pouring the wilderness into a jar. That's one way to build a fence. Here's another. Trace a pebble's lineage back to creation. Vested with moonflowers and intimations of the miraculous, the fence tilts into the hills, loosening its nails in a provocative fashion, unbuckling the armor men are saving for the final days. See how the fence swaggers in the wind, embodying a dying sense of justice. How it casts a shadow over the rumpled sheets of mud tucked into an arroyo in the wake of a flash flood. How it reveals our weakness for design. For we carried the fence, like our accents and dances, into the wilds of this sprawling continent, where it survived our twangs and replaced our 2 steps. The essence of the creative act for me is a kind of humility. It's a kind of listening, a kind of waiting and expectation. Here, the experience I was trying to be true to was putting people in a room with the hope that they would come to some new insights about what it is we hold in common.
crystal drop, alive, what we hold in common. Poetry never ends, with wings of silver it comes, like a flight from a lost boat it comes. As a magician it comes. Rain in us, many drops, many crystals, a color, all colors. What we hold in common. A poet steals words from open windows. He steals words. Poetry walks in the rain with an umbrella made of sun leaves, searching for a color, sometimes in vain, looking for a face again. A drop, a crystal drop, a line, what we heard.